What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to try and give you a video on everything you need to know in how to lose weight and try to build or maintain as much muscle mass as possible in that time. I'm going to get right into it. Some of the learning objectives I want to go over are definitely the truth and some of the nuances behind weight loss, why it's so hard, how to do it on a budget, right? How much protein you need to be eating and how to get that protein in on a budget, and then just a lot of tips and tricks on how to lose weight and really to actually put it into practice. I don't want to just give you a bunch of facts. I want to give you some actionable goals and techniques that you can really put into practice now, especially because let's be real, most of us are running on that like 3 a.m. motivation when it comes to weight loss, right? We get that sudden burst of like, I really want to lose weight, but it's just hard to really put that motivation to actionable steps because that motivation doesn't last forever. So let's go over why it's so hard, right? I mean, I could talk to you about it for hours, right? It's hard because, I mean, if you live in America, for example, like I do, you are surrounded by fucking junk. You are surrounded by high calorie nonsense and you're probably on the move. I mean, if you work, a full-time job, and maybe you go to school on top of that, it's tough. And it seems almost impossible to try and get that high protein in, go to the gym, get a ton of steps in. It's tough, but I'm telling you right now, it doesn't need to be as hard as you might think it is. It's mostly the mental barriers. And then also just putting a goal into practice. Other reasons why is because we get into this rut of messing up on our goal and messing up on our sort of weight loss journey and just saying, oh, I've ruined it. Better start next week. Fuck that. I don't want you to do that anymore. I'm going to give you some actual techniques and strategies to help you get over this, right? So let's go over calories in versus calories out. Is it true? Are there some nuances to it? What does it really mean? So generally what you hear on the internet a lot is eat less, move more, law of thermodynamics. And what the law of thermodynamics basically means is energy can't be created or destroyed. You probably heard it in science class back in fucking high school. And it's true for the most part that calories in versus calories out, the amount of calories you take in versus the amount of calories you burn, sort of take out, is the main driver of weight loss. However, it's not perfect, right? There's some genetic differences, but can't really change those. So it's kind of pointless to even really talk about it in like an individual level. And like epidemiology, sure, but we're not going over that. Calories in versus calories out is still the main thing that you can control in your life. So don't ignore it because it is the main driver and the main thing you can control. Sure, calorie labels aren't perfect. There's a lot of rounding. Sometimes there's just straight up lying in calorie labels, but for the most part, it is calorie management, right? And food labels are the main tool you have when it comes to weight loss. So if we're going to understand what a calorie is and really read a calorie, we have to understand what it means and how to quantify it, right? So TDEE is your total daily energy expenditure. It's built in 4 different sort of groups, right? Your main ways of burning calories are your basal metabolic rate. That's basically just how many calories your body burns just doing fucking normal like shit, right? Digestion, keeping your heart pumping, all the stuff that you don't actively do. And believe it or not, this is actually where most of your calories come from. Or at least calories burned, not calories intake. Then you have non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which we'll get to later on, and then exercise activity thermogenesis, which we'll also get to later on when we talk more about exercise rather than intake. Right now, we're going to go over nutrition mainly. And then finally, you have, so we went over basal metabolic rate, NEAT, EAT, and then you have your thermic effect of food, which is basically the amount of calories that is used to digest food, right? So sounds kind of productive. It's not that much. Obviously, if the thermic effect of food was like crazy, then how would we like what would be the point of eating, right? So it's a small portion and there's a little bit you can kind of take advantage of, but it's not the main thing we want to focus on. So one of the big things is protein during weight loss. How much protein should you be eating? And is it the main thing you should be focusing on? Generally, protein during weight loss or protein during a sort of weight gaining phase of bulk, basically the same thing. You want to aim for around, let's say 70% of your body weight in pounds, not in kilograms, 70% of your body weight in pounds, in grams, right? So if you weigh, to make my math easy, let's say you weigh 200 pounds. 70% of 200 is 140. So you'd be aiming for 140 grams of protein per day. Is it the end of the world if you don't get there? No. Is there some benefit if you go over that? There could be, right? But how I sort of see protein on a weight loss journey, we'll say, is it's good and it's generally better until it becomes worse, right? If you are trying to be like, oh, I'm gonna eat 300 grams of protein, right? And that like first week of weight loss when you're really trying to overdo it, I'm gonna eat like 300 grams of protein. There's really not a fucking point to do that because protein's good, but protein is the building blocks, right? If you don't have any energy, right? If you don't have your carbs and your fats that are going to be good for actually fueling your workouts, right? And the fats especially are good for your hormones, they're good for your brain health. You want at least, I would say, minimum 30% of your body weight in fat per day. Just for maintaining health. Carbs you can play with a lot because carbs are like sort of species specific fuel sources. That's why humans eat to actually be able to move around and do shit. So you can kind of mess around with that. If you want to try keto, you can, but for the most part, I don't think so because I personally feel that when I eat carbs, I have better workouts, just anecdotally. So really your main things is you want to get at least a minimum of fat, right? 30% or so, and then a minimum of protein. Again, if you go under 140 grams, don't worry about it. It's not the end of your diet. You didn't ruin your diet, okay? If you mess it up and have a 30-gram protein day, just go right back into it. As soon as you realize you messed up, don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for next month. Just be like, okay, I'm going to be better now, right? If it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing right fucking now. So protein, get that 70%-ish, and then again, good, and eventually worse, not because more protein is going to destroy your kidneys, but more protein could be worse because you're sacrificing your fat, right? If you bump up to 300 grams of protein a day, and as a result, you have to drop your fat and your carbs down to still be in a caloric deficit, right? Caloric deficit is you're eating less calories than you burn, then that's a bad thing, right? We want to set that minimum, set those minimums for your two sort of essential macronutrients, protein and fat. And then your carbs is kind of where you play around with the most. You might be able to play around with a little bit more fat, maybe a little bit more protein if you want to, if it's just naturally occurring in with the foods that you choose. But the big thing is your carbs and your fats after you hit those minimums. Next, let's go over like just some nutrition tips and tricks. Main thing, right, that I want you to get from this nutrition that I've talked about so far is figure out your TDEE, right? There are calculators online. Figure that out. And then, big thing is figure out your calorie goal based on your TDEE. So if you're burning 3,000 calories a day, you want to subtract around, let's say if you want to lose a pound of fat a week. A pound of fat is generally 3,500 calories. So subtract 500 for that because there's 7 days in a week. If you subtract 500 from 3,000, that ends up being 3,500 in a week. The math works out pretty well. So that means you'd be losing a pound a week, and that's great, right? In a year, you would theoretically lose 52 pounds. So 52 pounds is a ton of weight. So don't think that a pound a week isn't enough. The next thing is mainly the tips and tricks on how to get there. So convenience. Convenience is probably how you got big in the first place. I mean, I hate to assume, but watching the video, right? I was a big kid growing up. And the main reason why I got there was because I didn't know shit about nutrition. I didn't move. I played video games all day. And then convenience, right? The foods that I did have near me were very high calorie dense and very palatable. They were delicious, right? They're also easy to make, right? I didn't actually have to do a lot of movement to make it. You could basically just throw it in the microwave. And now we have air fryers, so that makes it even tastier. So what I want you to do is use the convenience to your advantage. Don't stock the house with a bunch of junk, okay? So just don't buy it. For me personally, if I have food in the house that's like junk, I kind of want to eat it. It's really hard to say no. But for me personally, at the grocery store, I don't have a lot of interest in buying junk, mainly because I'm a cheap bastard. So try to use that to your advantage. At the grocery store, only buy good stuff, right? Your whole foods. Not that you have to eat entirely whole foods, but they're generally going to be not only more nutritious, but more satiating per calorie, right? So things like potatoes, vegetables, lean meats, shit like that. Whole grains too. Stock your house with that shit, and then try to meal prep certain things. Like I might meal prep just a straight protein source. Just keep a big pot of like, let's say, lean ground beef. You can make a ton of meals with that lean ground beef, and it's actually easier than if you want to go get junk. Because if you want to go get junk, you'd have to get in the car, start the car, go somewhere, go to fast food place, go to the grocery store to buy junk. Rather than you already have a cooked thing of ground beef in the fridge. I got some salad mix. There you go, taco salad. Other thing is keep your food scale. We'll get into tracking later. Keep your food scale on the counter. That way, it's really not that hard to track your shit. You can literally just take the food scale that's already on the counter, put your bowl on top of the food scale, turn it on. It zeros, right? So the bowl doesn't weigh anything, because you weighed it, you zeroed the scale to the bowl, and then you add your ground beef. Oh, let's say 100 grams. Bam. Easy. To conclude the nutrition aspect of all this, I want you to set a realistic goal, preferably multiple realistic goals. Find your TDEE, and then subtract from that TDEE, and there's calculators online to find your TDEE. By the way, try to underestimate the amount of calories, right? It's going to ask you what's your activity level. Try to find your activity level and then just pick the one right below it. Like if you think, oh, I'm probably somewhat active, pick not very active, right? Whatever the one right below it is, just in case. And then subtract from your TDEE based on your goal, right? So if your goal was I want to lose 10 pounds in a couple months, right? Let's say it's by Valentine's Day or something. Say, okay, well, if I want to do that, I'm going to need to lose a pound a week. That's 500 calories deficit per week. That means each day you really don't need that big of a deficit. 500 is pretty freaking reasonable. For some people, if you just take out your sugary drinks, like your sugar sweetened sodas and everything, or your juices, and just replace it with the low calorie versions or just water, that could already be your 500 calorie deficit, and you barely noticed it. Next, try to meal prep. Pick some lean protein sources and at least meal prep those. Make it in bulk. It doesn't necessarily have to be in all these separate Tupperware containers. It can literally be in a large vat in the fridge. That way you have a ton of meals that you can make based on that, right? Because it kind of sucks to just eat the same thing every day. Some guys do it. They just eat, ground beef and rice every day, and that's fine. Some people, especially if you have a significant other, it kind of sucks to bring them along in the journey and just every day you're eating beef and rice and then they kind of have to eat beef and rice. Again, it doesn't have to be beef. It can be ground turkey, ground chicken. If you're vegan, tofu, legumes, beans. So like beans are a fucking legume. Seitan, tempeh, shit like that. Make a ton of that at once. Keep it in your fridge for however long it stays good in the fridge. And you can make a bunch of things with it. You can make tacos, you can make salad, you can make a sandwich, you can make whatever with it. And that would be even more convenient than the junk, especially if there's no junk in your house. And then never say, the big thing I want you to never say is never say, I ruined my diet, right? Because that's what we all do. We go to these little social events, right? And we ruin our diet. And then we think, I fucking ruined it. I might as well eat whatever I want tonight. And then let's say today's Saturday, I might as well eat whatever I want tomorrow and then start fresh Monday. Fuck that. How about if it's worth doing, you better do it now. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy social events. In fact, I'm going to tell you to enjoy social events. Christmas is coming up. I want you to eat whatever you want on fucking Christmas. But don't BS yourself about what a social event is and what is a special occasion. Because sure, Christmas and Thanksgiving, I would say, are valid social events. And I tell my clients, hey, enjoy yourself. Have a good time. But what I don't tell them after they, do good on a test or they drove to the gym safely, I don't say, you deserve a treat. No. Social events should be fucking holidays or something major in your life. Don't be thinking every time you do anything in life, you need a sweet treat. Be realistic, okay? Not every day is a special occasion. I'd say special occasions really happen probably like once a month, if not less than that. Be realistic. Next, so we're going to go into the exercise aspect of this. So we're going to go over first NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We mentioned it earlier. The big aspect of NEAT and then EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis, is that they actually aren't totally a ton of calories burned. They're generally less calories than your basal metabolic rate, depending on what you do, right? For the most part, basal metabolic rate is always going to be the highest amount. But non-exercise activity thermogenesis and exercise activity thermogenesis are what we actually do consciously. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, as the name would imply, take a shot every time I say thermogenesis. Don't actually fucking do that. Is what you do that isn't intentionally exercise. So if you are walking around at work or just walking around the house, if you're doing the dishes, if you're doing chores around the house, anything like that, you're pulling weeds, That is non-exercise. It's activity. It's definitely physical activity, and it definitely burns calories, but it's not exercise. And I think part of the reason why we separate the two is because some people burn a ton of calories, but they never exercise, right? Think people who work warehouse jobs. One of my first jobs was a warehouse job, and I didn't exercise that time in my life, but I burned a lot of calories, and I kind of ate like shit, but I burned a lot of calories, so I kind of maintained my weight. I worked at a warehouse overnight. I did like a 6 p.m. to like 5 a.m. shift, kind of averaged out, and they would kick me out at 12 because that would be overtime. And I remember when I first got the job, I was like, how are all these people aren't like ridiculously shredded? Like we are moving constantly. We're just throwing packages and boxes around. I feel like I'm going to lose like 40 pounds in like 6 months. And then I realized when I got out at like 5 a.m., first I was basically bringing nothing. Like I would have like a protein bar and that's all I'd eat. But eventually I got sick of that and I hated that job. So I would want to treat myself every day. And what's open at 5 a.m.? I'll give you a secret. I'll give you the hint. It's fucking McDonald's, okay? So every morning, really night, because for me, every time I get out of shift, it'd be 5 a.m. and I'd get myself something. It started with just a sausage biscuit. Delicious. And then progressively, I got hungrier and I got more upset about my job, so I wanted to treat myself more. And then I got 2 sausage biscuits. Then I was like, damn, I could really go for a breakfast burrito. I got the 2 breakfast burrito meal. Delicious. But then I was like, damn, I missed the sausage biscuits. So by the end of my time working at that warehouse, I was going to McDonald's after every shift. And my order was the 2 breakfast burrito meal. I don't know if they still have it. I really don't. I haven't been to McDonald's in a long time. But I was doing that meal. I'm going on a tangent right now. But I was doing that meal and I was getting 2 sausage biscuits. So it was 2 breakfast burritos, a hash brown, 2 sausage biscuits, plus a drink. And then I understood why the people who worked at that warehouse weren't absolutely shredded, because that's probably what they were doing too. And quite frankly, I mean, I get it. I get it. So I was moving around a ton. Mind you, I was doing all this and I wasn't gaining a lot of weight because my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the amount of shit I was doing during that job, was keeping me lean. But as a result, I was so tired, and because I was eating junk, I was so lethargic, I did no exercise. I actually was more consistent with my exercise before this job, which I didn't think would happen. So that's kind of why we separated, right? Because these kind of blue collar guys, right? These who are working these physically laborious jobs are doing a ton of activity that's not exercise. Then you have other people who work at desks, and the main way they can get their activity up is generally by adding exercise, or here's a secret, they can add habits. Because again, it's not intentional exercise that non-exercise activity thermogenesis is. So what you can do to increase your NEAT, and this is great because it's something that's very low impact and you won't even notice it, is just start doing things like wash the dishes by hand more. Park farther away when you go to Walmart or whatever. Park farther away. Do little things like that, right? Don't be afraid to take a bathroom break at work. Go for a little walk, right? During your breaks at work, go for a walk, right? Do these little things. If you live in a city, start walking to work, right? Like if it's a reasonable walk, walk there. Instead of taking the elevator, take the stairs. Quite frankly, I don't want to be stuck in that fucking elevator if anything happens, so I walk anyway. Don't tell anyone I said that. I'm not afraid of elevators. Do these little habits, and that will heavily increase. It seems small, but think about it over the course of years. If you just get used to these little habits, they can do a ton. Next is your exercise activity thermogenesis. Believe it or not, resistance training, while being amazing for your health, building muscle, for bone mineral density, for so many things, it actually doesn't necessarily burn a lot of calories. What's going to burn a lot of calories is moving your body for a longer amount of time, right? Because you can only move your body hard for so long. So what I like to do, implement a step standard. I'm going to trademark that. I tell everyone about my step standard. All my clients know about the step standard. Is set a step goal that you want to hit every single day. Doesn't have to be ridiculous. In fact, I would, start wearing some sort of watch. I'm not going to say any brand names, but you can get a pedometer super cheap. It just counts your steps. That's it. You can get it super, super cheap, and I highly recommend it. And wear it around for a couple weeks. Figure out how many steps you get. Let's say on average you get 4,000 steps a day. Pretty low, but not terribly low. I've seen a lot worse. Say 4,000 is what I get normally without trying. I'm going to bump it up to 6,000 a day, right? Just go on a little extra walk every day. Just implement those habits and you might literally get to 6,000. 6,000 is going to be your minimum. If it's 9 o'clock at night, my bedtime's at 10 and I don't have 6,000 steps, I'm walking around the damn house. I'm pacing until I get 6,000. You need to set a standard and be honest with yourself and actually achieve it every single day. So don't make it ridiculous. And then other days, if you want to set aside cardio days, right? Preferably cardio days are generally best on days where you're not doing resistance training. But if it's a time specific, you only want to be at the gym 3 days a week and you like using the treadmill, let's say right after your workouts, just hop on the treadmill for 10, 20 minutes to make sure you crank out those steps by the end of the night. My best tip, if you're having a hard time hitting these steps, is to front load your steps. So if you go to school, go to class a little bit early and then just walk around campus, right? That's what I do personally when I'm at school is I try to get there a little early, walk around campus, or if you have giant gaps in between your classes, pace around, walk around till you hit your steps, preferably as soon as possible, and then go to the library, study, chill, whatever, and then go to your class. Other things is that if you have the money to spend, of course, economy, whatever, not the best right now, but if you have the money to spend, you can get like a walking pad and then put it right in front of your TV and get some steps while you watch the shows you're already binging. If you definitely have the money to spend, a standing desk and then a walking pad combination is goated. I personally do that myself. I got them on Cyber Monday, my standing desk and the walking pad. Phenomenal investment. If I ever don't have any steps, I basically just continue to do whatever I was doing on the computer originally, but I just roll that walking pad right into my desk. I actually kind of like it. It helps me focus, honestly. That's going to be huge. And then just do your regular workouts. Do your regular workouts. You do not have to do crazy cardio. You do not have to hit the Stairmaster. You do not have to run. You do not have to bike. But if you like doing those are phenomenal cardios. You're training your heart, not necessarily the muscles that are involved in cardio. So it doesn't necessarily matter. Whatever cardio you like and you can sort of do while maybe watching a show is probably the best cardio for over the long-term weight loss. Next is training for weight loss. And I really mean resistance training for weight loss. Is basically do the resistance training. And I'll probably end up making more videos on how to do resistance training and how to make a program. But just do whatever resistance training you were doing before the same way. Don't change a damn thing. If I hear one more fucking person be like, oh, well, when I lose weight, I bump up the reps to really tone the muscle. Fuck you. That's not a thing. Just do whatever you were doing before the exact same way. So if you were doing, I don't know, let's say you liked bench squat deadlift, right? You do not have to do bench squat and deadlift. But let's say you like doing that and you did 2 sets of bench on Monday or whatever, and then you had other exercises after that. But if you did 2 sets of bench for, let's say, 5 to 10 reps, and that was working for you, you were progressively overloading, you were getting stronger, why change it just because you're eating less calories, right? It's really not like, don't go into your cut thinking that all of your numbers are going to drop and you're going to do terrible and you have to drop the weights or drop the reps or whatever. Don't do that. Just go into it the exact same way, because if you put it into your head that you're going to do worse, you probably will. Whether you can or cannot, right? Whether you think you can or cannot, the answer is probably true. So you should just think that you can. You can still grow and still get stronger, especially early on in your sort of lifting career, like first 5-10 years. Maybe not 10, depending on how consistent you are, but definitely like first 5 years of lifting. Just because you're cutting doesn't mean you're going to drop. Like if you're trying to lose like 5 pounds a week, yeah, you're probably not going to feel too good. But if you're just losing like 1 or 2 pounds a week, you can still not only keep your numbers in the gym, but probably bump them up. So just do whatever you were doing before if that was working. And then muscle growth during weight loss, it's not that hard. You can actually grow muscle in weight loss because muscle growth isn't necessarily calorie dependent. Because you're adding, think about it, you're adding such a small amount of muscle each day, each week, even each month. And it's all around your body. It's really not that many calories. Think about a chicken breast, right? Mostly protein. It's like well over a pound. And if you spread that pound across your entire body, it's really not that many calories. Think about how many calories are in a pound of chicken, right? I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not that many. So why do you think you need to add 1,000 calories every day to add one of those little pounds across your entire body evenly, right? Like you're trying to put in 50x the amount of calories that's actually required to make that protein. So stop it. Get some help. You don't need to be in a calorie surplus to gain weight. Is it probably beneficial? Yeah, probably. But you don't need to. So just stop worrying about it and just focus on your training, focus on your calorie deficit. And if you really do feel like you feel a lot worse on a cut, just get the cut over with and go back to your maintaining or bulking phase. Next thing, track your eating and your workouts. It can be literally as simple as getting any of those nutrition apps like Chronometer, MyFitnessPal. I'm sure there's some other ones, but I don't remember. And just typing in, let's say, even if you're eating something that's like pre-made, you can either scan the barcode, or if you're eating something that your family made, chances are you can actually like type it in. Let's say your mom made chicken parmesan, right? Homemade. You can probably just put the chicken in a bowl and then just type chicken parmesan. Like, is it going to be exact, right? Maybe your mom uses less oil than, whatever's on Chronometer or whatever. Maybe she uses more, who knows? But it's better than doing nothing. So you can literally just type it in. Doesn't have to be exact brand name, exact measurements, but just weigh the chicken in the bowl or the plate and just type it in. Anything is better than nothing. And then for workouts, it can literally be as simple as a notepad on your phone, or if you want to bring a notebook, sure. Not a lot of people do that anymore, but it's pretty based. And then I personally use Google Sheets. I make Google Sheets programs. If you want one, hit me up, I guess. I don't know. I could probably just give you one for free, honestly. Because let's be honest, I don't have a lot of subscribers right now. Set up your Google Sheets and put in, all you need really to put in is your weight, obviously the exercise, right? But the exercise shouldn't change very often. Don't be program hopping. Keep the same program for at least a few months, unless, you get injured or whatever. Put the weight, put the reps. Chances are your weight's going to be the same for all your sets. But if you want to do a little, like double dynamic progression, have different weights for each of your sets, then obviously include that too. Put the weight for your other sets. Chances are you're probably only going to need, like 2 to 4 sets. Any more than that's probably overkill, unless you have an injury and you have to train very, very light. But track it, because you want to focus on those little W's, and I'll get to that later. Next thing is protein on a budget. So right now, economy kind of sucks, right? Protein is generally your most expensive macronutrient. Fats being generally relatively cheap. I mean, you can get like even olive oil, which is generally pretty expensive. When you average out how much calories you're actually getting per dollar, it's generally relatively cheap. And fats are pretty, I mean, everything's kind of expensive right now, but they're not too expensive. Carbs are generally your cheapest food. I mean, think rice, pasta, super, super cheap. You're probably not going to want to eat a lot of rice and pasta on a weight loss phase. And then vegetables, depending on what's in season, can generally be pretty cheap too. And I consider those carbs, even though they're generally pretty low calorie in total. And then your protein is generally your most high calorie food. And what I'm going to recommend is that, especially on a weight loss phase, when you're buying something for protein, take the servings, multiply it by the amount of protein per serving. Let's say it's, for the ease of my math, let's say it's, 10 grams of protein and it's 5 servings. That's 50 grams of protein. And let's say it's a box of cereal. It's 50 grams of protein. Then let's say this box is $5. Then you divide that 50 grams of protein total by $5. You get 10 grams of protein per dollar that you spend. My general recommendation is you want to be aiming for higher than 10. Anything below 10, I'm going to say, isn't a good source of protein, right? It might have other benefits, right? Like you might have like a fatty piece of meat or something that might have some health benefits, might have some nutrients, but it's not a good source of protein, at least per dollar. You want to get something that's preferably above 20. And believe it or not, protein powders are expensive, but if you actually do the math, a lot of them are well over 20 grams of protein per dollar. My personal recommendation is anything between 10 and 20 is relatively okay in terms of getting for a protein. Anything above 20 is something that you actually want to keep in mind. Of course, health, right? But most lean protein sources, right, things that have a lot of protein, are generally relatively good for you too. I can do another video on it and really talk specifics about what foods to get for this. I just want to teach you protein per dollar. Sleep's actually huge for weight loss. Personally, I think sleep's huge mainly because it's just hours that you are not thinking about eating. But it's also good from just like a metabolic and health standpoint and taking weight off. You actually burn a decent amount of calories in your sleep. I'm not telling you you should just sleep all day to lose weight, but probably pretty effective. Like, sleep's super healthy. And it's just more time that you are not eating. And also, if you feel better, chances are you're less likely to think you deserve a sweet treat or to buy convenience and junk food and energy drinks and things like that that might have a lot of calories that might also affect your weight loss. It'll kind of be a spiral. You don't want to just go on this weight loss thinking that you're going to feel like crap, then do a bunch of things that'll make you feel like crap. And then as a result of feeling like crap, you'll want to treat yourself. So get your sleep in 7-8 hours, preferably. And then the last thing I want to go over is focus on the little W's. Focus on those little wins. If you go into it and you look at the mirror and you say, I want to lose weight, and you try to look at yourself in the mirror every single day, chances are you're not going to notice a difference. Other people might notice a difference because they don't see you every day, but you're not going to notice a difference. Take a picture. Go into the mirror and take a picture right now with your shirt off or whatever. I promise you, if this weight loss journey goes well, which I hope it does, you will be happy that you took this picture. And then what I want you to do is to not look for the difference in the mirror again for months, at least until you accomplish that first goal. You can look at yourself at the mirror all the time, but don't look for the difference until then. And then until then, I want you to focus on the little W's. Think, okay, today I benched, 90 pounds for 5. Next week, I want to do 95 pounds for 5. Or maybe I want to do 90 pounds for 6 reps or 7 reps. Focus on those little W's. Get those little dopamine spikes. If you try to look for your long-term goal to be completed every day, you're going to be disappointed. And remember, you have the honor. You have your own body. Like, it's incredible what we are and what we can do. And don't take that for granted. But focus on little W's because you have all the time in the world. But focus on the little ones because they're going to keep you going. Just go day by day. Set your little goals. Even if it's just a little goal like, hey, I want to hit this amount of protein per day. And then at the end of the day, you hit that. You're like, that feels good. Set goals. Set as many goals as you can, but make them realistic and make them something that you know you can achieve. And just enjoy the process. Because a lot of these habits that you're going to be building right now are going to just be a part of your life later down the line. And you're not even going to, it's not even going to be a part of a weight loss journey, right? These things like weighing your food, or at least sort of eyeballing your food, is going to be such a good habit down the line. And just enjoy the process, right? Enjoy working out. Going to the gym thinking, I want to kick fucking ass today. And always progress. No matter what it is, progress always.